As long as you're the only person in your business with answers, then your business can't grow without you, and you'll always be the bottleneck. You will always hit a wall because, your personal capacity is limited, and that's why you need to create systems and hire team members to help you grow beyond your personal capacity. So in this video, we're going to be talking about why you're still the bottleneck, even though you've probably tried writing SOPs and process maps and so on, but it didn't go well, and I'm going to explain why and how to do it differently so it will go great. So basically, usually the founder, the owner, is the one who has all the answers. They all lives in their head, and they're hoping for a way to make their team members absorb that knowledge, right? So basically, every question that lands in your inbox is proof that you're still the bottleneck, or Slack, right? Whenever people are asking you about how to do the things that you think that they should be doing, that's further proof that you're still the bottleneck. So maybe you've explained the same thing 4 times this month to 4 different people. How do we handle refunds after 30 days? What's our policy on discount codes? When should I escalate a customer complaint? How do I handle this supplier situation? Or even stuff like, this is happening on our Facebook ad, what to do with it? Or this is happening on our sales calls, what to do with it, right? So if people are asking you stuff, means you have a system problem. Same questions, different people every month. And the next month you explain it again and again because your knowledge is trapped in your head, right? It dies the moment you stop talking. So without you, people don't know what to do. You're a black box. They can perform to a certain extent, but they won't be able to execute completely without you. So that's why you can't have a business that runs without you. So things nobody else knows. You know how to handle the tricky suppliers. You know what to do when inventory runs low, the exact way to word an email to difficult customers or partners or whatever it is. And because you know it, then you have to do it, right? You think, okay, I'm the only one who knows it, or I know how to do it best, so I'll do it. Or at least you have to approve and give them feedback before your team members will be comfortable doing it, right? So you probably try to fix this by writing SOPs, and SOPs don't work. They have a specific role to play in your entire infrastructure, in your process of systemizing your business, yes, but if you just do SOPs, it's not going to work, because here's what's going to happen. They will land in what I call the SOP graveyard. So let's say it goes something like this usually. You spend a weekend documenting stuff, how to process orders, returns, how to answer common questions, how we do social media, what to post here, what to post there, how to prepare for sales calls if that's your funnel, and all sorts of stuff, right? So you spend a weekend documenting, or probably even more. Then you share it with your team and, hey, here's the playbook, here's how we do it, follow this from now on. And then eventually what happens is people stop using it, right? You got the same questions, same mistakes, and your SOPs aren't really used, they're updated. You got like different versions, old version, and new version. If you're honest, most likely you probably forgot about all the SOPs that you wrote in the past, and they're just sitting there, and it's like sending a message to the team that like, it's something theoretical that the founder does from time to time, but really, we don't really implement it in practice after a while, and yeah, it's not that important. So basically, you conclude the documentation doesn't work for your business, your team prefers to ask you, right? And your business is probably too unique, it's too complex, it's different, right? Everybody thinks, oh, my business is different, it doesn't really work that way, and you can't systemize it. But the problem is that the SOPs are just the tip of the iceberg, right? So even though you get some benefit from an SOP because you can document a certain task, how it's done, then if they don't live inside a wider system inside your business, then people will always have to come to you because they're like random pieces of the puzzle, like little isolated bits of information that don't really give somebody the whole picture, right? It's just a technical guide on how to execute a certain thing. That's not enough, right? So here I have a different methodology of how you can turn any chaos into a documented process that will actually run without you, because that's what you want. Just with an SOP, you're not going to have your team members execute entire processes inside a business system or whatever it is, right? So like you can't give somebody an SOP for a sales call or for how to post on social media and now expect that like now they know everything they need to know to grow your organic reach by X amount or whatever your monthly targets are. But here's what you need to do on top of SOPs. So basically I have a 5-step system mapping. So I'm going to be talking about systems and not SOPs. And number 1 is you want to create a visual flowchart of how work actually flows inside your business. And let me show you a quick example. So let's say you are running an e-commerce business and you have product pages in your business and you need a system for how to create new product pages. So like when you have new products, everybody knows what to do and they don't have to ask you and they don't have to check with you for approval, anything like that. So basically you would start by mapping the process visually. So now when it comes to product pages, there's actually a lot more to do than just create a product page. You also want to be reviewing the performance of existing product pages. You want to be optimizing them, split testing potentially. You have seasonal or promotional adjustments, so on. And you need to map all of these things separately, right? Because they're different things. So basically, you wouldn't have an SOP. Step one would be you create a flowchart like this. Now, I'm going to go very briefly. I don't want to make this video about visual process mapping, but basically a flowchart that looks like this. You just map every step, and these are different swim lanes. So like different people are doing different steps potentially, right? Maybe the person who's creating a new product listing is not the same person who can upload high quality creatives or images and videos. Maybe that's the person who actually creates them. And somebody needs to write the copy. So this might be different people inside your business, and that you can represent with swim lanes. Again, I'm just going very quickly here. The point is you want to have a visual process map, and you don't need to have swim lanes. You can keep it very simple. Just create a box, arrow, next box, arrow, next step, and that's it, right? You map it visually. So the next thing that you will need then is the entire playbook. So an implementation toolkit, which has SOPs and all the other stuff that somebody might need to take over an entire function inside a business, right? Because again, an SOP just explains how to do one little tiny specific thing inside your business. Not enough if you want to delegate and assign outcomes to people rather than just assign tasks all the time and check the work. So basically, you would have a document that looks something like this. So here's an example playbook or implementation toolkit for social media, right? It has a lot more than just an SOP. It has the full process map. So, all the stuff that I just showed you, you put that in here. Then you have an SOP for pretty much each of the steps on your flowchart, right? So here's an example SOP. You've seen this before, right? Screenshots. There are many tools that you can use these days to do it, even with AI. Then you would have strategy documents, right? Tactical playbooks. Like, what's the strategy, right? You need to explain this so that people know the bigger context. It's not enough, again, just the technical instruction is not enough. You need the strategy as well. So you would have the strategic documents. And this is just an example one, but you would have like probably a lot more in here. So that's step two, right? So you got your visual map. Then you got your document, which is the entire playbook for the entire thing. It's not just an SOP. There's an SOP for each of the steps that are involved. And there's a tactical playbook, how to do that particular thing inside your business, right? The next thing you need to make sure is that you connect the system that you just started creating to execution, which means to the actual tasks that are being done, right? Let me give you an example. So let's go back to the product pages example. So let's say you have a visual process map for how to create product pages. And then you have a playbook which goes more into detail about each of the steps, which includes SOPs and also the tactics and the strategy, how a good product page looks like, so people can think through more than just the technical execution. All right, so you got those two things. And now, when it's time to create the next product page, when let's say you launch a new product, then you need to connect this somehow to your work flow, right? And the best way to do this is to have a pre-prepared template inside whatever work management tool you're using, maybe you're using Asana or ClickUp or something like that. So you would have a template that reflects those processes and the SOPs. That's basically it. And you have a task with all the steps in there needed that are typically needed to create a product page. And you just assign that to whoever is responsible, and then they go through. Or you have a bigger project and you assign it to probably like your project manager, and then they assign the subtasks to the specific individual people. And this is how you start connecting SOPs with the actual day-to-day work, right? Quite a lot of the time, people create an SOP. It's going to live in their Google Drive folder. But then when it's time to actually do the work on a day-to-day basis inside the business, almost nobody's opening those documents. They live in Asana or ClickUp or wherever they are. They have a look at their task and they start doing stuff. And then maybe if they remember, they'll go to the SOP and so on. But this way you can have a pre-prepared template. You can put the links in there to the visual process map, the links in there to the playbook. Now everything is there, plus the task is already pre-prepared and structured in a way that will force the person to follow the SOP, right? That's how you do it. Now, obviously, sometimes it's not going to relate 100%. You work with it and you adapt to reality. And then you will need KPIs so you know that your system is working, right? So you need to set like performance benchmarks, KPIs, and make sure that people know that, okay, your job is not just to execute this task. Your job is to own the outcome, which means I need you to hit this KPI. So for different areas, this will be different, but you need to measure it. I'm not going to go into detail about KPIs in this video. You just know that you need to set KPIs. Otherwise, you just have still people who can do the work. They're like task rabbits, but they're disconnected from the outcome. So that's why I need it. And then you need to manage the whole process. You need to set up reviews and maintenance so it stays current, right? So somebody needs to be responsible for checking regularly all of these process maps and SOPs and KPIs and making sure that, yep, it's all still being followed. It all is still relevant. Or maybe things need to be updated or maybe even deleted and a new one needs to be created and that sort of stuff, right? So this is how you create order in your business and you start systemizing properly, right? It's a 5-step methodology. You can turn any chaos into a documented system. Each step builds on the previous one, right? If you skip one step, like the whole thing will fall apart. It's not, you'll go from 100% impact to 10 or 20% impact because it's going to disconnect all the other elements and it doesn't work as a system anymore, which then you're back to square one where you have some documentation and some instruction, But at the end of the day, people still have to come to you to like connect the dots. And that's where like you get all those questions, which you don't need to have. So this is how you start taking the knowledge out of your head and putting it into a documented system so your team can run things without you. Now let's talk about another concept that I've developed, and that's the company mind map. And that's a tool that you can use to visually represent your entire business and start understanding, okay, where do I need processes and systems? What's all happening in my business? Because your business is very complex. Whatever you're doing, whatever industry you're in, you got a bunch of stuff that needs to get done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? So there's all sorts of stuff happening in a business, and you need to put this out of your head and onto a piece of paper or a piece of digital paper. I'm going to suggest you use a whiteboarding tool. There's plenty of them online. And yeah, you need to map it out. And let me just show you. It's going to be easier to understand. So here's a simple example. Let me zoom in a little bit of a company mind map for a typical, let's say, simple e-commerce business, okay? You would just simply list the branches, the core departments and functions inside your business. So that's level one. Obviously, you know how mind map works. You can then expand it, and then you have all the other subsystems inside it, right? So let's say you might have a growth department, and then inside that, you might have paid advertising, and then inside paid advertising, you might have Facebook ads, Google ads, and TikTok ads, right? And then you might have email and SMS systems, and you might have promotions and automated flows, right? And then you might have social media. Maybe you're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are. So this is how you start systemizing. And I showed you product pages as an example. So for example, that would be under sales channels. Let's say you have a Shopify store. Well, you need systems for Shopify product pages because those are your main, basically, selling assets, right? So that's how it works. Now, depending on which business you are and how you think about business, you would just create your own. So this is like a template that would work for probably like a typical e-commerce business with the minor adaptations, but maybe you have a different type of business, and you just list out all the core areas as you see them, right? So for example, here I have under leadership, I put the team and the finances and the strategy under leadership. Now you might see it differently. You might think an HR department is a completely separate thing and you don't want to put it inside leadership and strategy, right? Or you maybe think finance is completely different and like finance should be its own department. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. This isn't prescribing it. This is just a simple template. But however you think about it, you set your high level departments, then you know what's inside of those departments, and then you just keep going level deeper and level deeper. And eventually you have everything that's happening in your business down to the very last small process. I don't know, customer support or sales calls or social media posting or developing new products or how you deliver a service or how to talk to a customer on the field or whatever it is, right? You first list it all out here. So you have your entire business out of your head and onto a piece of digital paper, right? And then now you can make the connection, right? So now I have all these branches. Then you can say, okay, where do I need to start systemizing, right? And then you just pick the ones that are the most painful, the most obvious one, and you just start creating the systems. And that's basically a simple system that ties it all together. And now you can see how much better this is than just having SOPs that live in like Google folders, right? It's a completely different approach. And now if you want to take it to the next level, then you can use this company mind map also as a diagnostic tool, which means you start marking the branches that need the most attention, right? So for example, if you want to create a business that runs without you, that your team can run independently and you don't have to be involved on a day-to-day basis, then everything needs to be systemized. Because if it's not, then you're still needed in certain areas. So for example, you could say, all right, let's just take marketing. Let's say you're the person who's still running Facebook ads in your company for whatever reason, right? Like you were the expert and you're always running it, and let's say you're doing it. Or you have an agency, but you are the person, who's still talking with the agency and like getting their feedback and report and talking with them, designing the strategy together and that sort of stuff, right? So you're still involved in Facebook ads, right? So in that case, you would mark Facebook ads as an area that needs to be systemized. A simple color coding system that you could use is a traffic system. So basically you take yellow if you're still involved, but you're not really doing it, right? So let's say you have an agency, right? An agency is running your ads. You're still involved because obviously you need to hire the agency. You need to like talk with the agency all the time. You're getting reports. You're going on Zoom calls with them. If something is wrong, like you're the one brainstorming with them together, like how to fix it. And they give you suggestions, that sort of stuff. You're still involved, right? You're not sending somebody else to those meetings. That would be yellow. If you're still doing it, that would be red, right? So that like you're actually still in the platforms and you're creating ads and you're running stuff and maybe somebody's helping you with images and videos and stuff like this, but like you're running the ads, right? That would be red. Means like that's worse than somebody else doing it, but you're still being involved. And let's say it's completely outsourced or delegated. So let's say either you have a team member who's running it and they never have to ask you for anything. Like they just know how to hit their KPIs. You just set KPIs together with them on a monthly basis. For example, you say, this month we want to hit 50K in sales from Facebook ads at this profit margin. And then you leave them to it, and they do it, and they don't have to come ask you in the meantime, hey, this is happening. What do you think we should do? Oh, this campaign isn't doing well. Do we need another one? Do you want to do another one for Black Friday or Christmas holidays or whatever? Like, they're just doing their thing based on the systems and the playbook that you've created. That would then be green, right? So you can start color coding all of the branches. And the goal, obviously, is to move the entire company from red to yellow to green. That's it. When it's all green, you have a business that's running itself, and that's it. You can just focus on the strategy or maybe other things that you want to do. So with these two things, the company mind map and the playbooks or / implementation toolkit, you will have basically a contained system that you can now start implementing inside your business and just expanding to like more and more branches eventually until you have the entire business systemized and it runs completely without you. So that's what you can start doing. I would suggest this week you pick one system. Maybe you pick the one that causes the most repeated question for your team or the most problems, or the one that's like the most annoying for you, or it doesn't really matter. You just prioritize. There's different ways of prioritizing, but again, I'm going to just wrap up this video. You pick one system. You can get our template. I'm going to link stuff under the video. You map the current reality. How does it actually work today? Not the ideal, how you think it should work or how it will work once you have the things in place that you want and so on, right? So just map it the way how it's currently being done. You start there. And then, of course, these process maps also become like great tools for improving stuff and so on. And then you will fill in the toolkit, SOPs, KPIs, tactical instruction, and so on. And then you assign an owner. That's what I said, right? Somebody needs to own it. Somebody needs to be responsible for updating it. That's the person who's currently doing the thing in your business, right? If you're doing it, well, then you're the owner. If somebody else is, let's say it's social media posting, if somebody else is running your Instagram account, then they're now responsible for also maintaining this process, updating it, and so on. And actually, they could be also be the one who's creating it, right? So you don't have to do this on your own if you're not doing these things inside your business. So that's it. Now, I would suggest don't try to document your whole business at the same time. You build one system, then you move to the next one, to the next one. As you get better, you outsource it and you delegate it to your team members. They can do their own thing and so on. Now, it's not that easy sometimes because they need to be like systematic thinkers. So you'll still need to be heavily involved because not everybody is a systems thinker and it's not a skill that comes easy to some people. So that's just how it is. So again, you can download all this stuff. I'm going to leave the links in the description. And that's basically it. No more SOP graveyards. Build living systems that actually connect until your entire business is an ecosystem of documented processes and playbooks and everybody knows what to do. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.